In March of 2019, shortly after a FedEx package was delivered to his home in the Sentinel Hills neighborhood of Las Vegas, Alex Mazzola checked his surveillance system and noticed two suspicious men in the area. They seemed to be waiting for the courier to leave after dropping off the package. Once they believed that the coast was clear, one of the men approached the front door while the other waited for him in an SUV. The would-be porch pirate was just a few steps from the package when Mazzola stormed out of his house with a pistol in hand. As captured by the homeowner's Ring camera, he asked the other man, trying to steal something. The would-be porch pirate uttered an unconvincing "no" as he took off running with Mazzola chasing after him. It turned out that the homeowner was a former bounty hunter, highly experienced in dealing with criminal elements. Mazzola later told the media, "I used to chase guys. I've arrested MS-13 guys," saying of the porch pirate, he chose the wrong house at the wrong time. It was just perfect timing. After pursuing one of the suspects on foot, Mazzola turned to the one in the SUV and ordered him to get out. The man, however, kicked the vehicle in reverse and sped off. The story gained considerable attention online, and surveillance videos of the incident were picked up by multiple media outlets. When Las Vegas law enforcement arrived at the scene, they found the vehicle had approached it with their weapons drawn. By then, however, the suspects had fled. It would emerge that the SUV had been stolen from Henderson, and inside there were more pilfered packages. A few hours later, 40-year-old Jared Moore and Ulysses Ribolla, aged 33, were taken into custody. They faced 4 charges, each including possession of a stolen vehicle. Speaking to the media in the incident's wake, Mazzola advised members of the public against following his example when dealing with porch pirates, encouraging them to get Ring cameras and call 911. Mazzola also had a warning for any other would-be criminals, saying, "We got guns, we got cameras, you know. You don't want to come rob in our neighborhood." Number 7. Robson Jr. Jardim dos Santos. In December of 2016, Robson Jr. Jardim dos Santos walked into a bank in Lucas do Rio Verde, Brazil, brandished a pistol and pointed it at the security guard, Walter de Mello. As seen in CCTV footage, Dos Santos threatened the latter while reaching for his service weapon, but a struggle ensued. De Mello quickly disarmed Dos Santos, whose weapon, a toy replica, fell to the floor and broke apart. As the altercation unfolded, a male customer and a teller took refuge behind a desk. The security guard pushed the would-be robber to the ground just as his unidentified accomplice rushed towards the entrance to assist him. The second robber reached the revolving glass door, but De Mello opened fire on him through the hardened glass windows, shattering them. The accomplice took off running. Dos Santos tried to do the same and bolted towards the revolving door, but De Mello shot him 3 times. The would-be robber dropped to his knees and surrendered. The security guard kept his weapon aimed at Dos Santos as he dragged him away from the exit. The male customer assisted De Mello and punched the suspect in the face twice while he was down. Dos Santos was left in critical condition after 2 bullets had struck him in the abdomen and a third clipped his ear. He underwent emergency surgery at São Lucas Hospital, but no updates were immediately made regarding his health and criminal charges. Number 6. Who? Elevator surveillance cameras captured an altercation at a karaoke club in Taichung, Taiwan in the summer of 2022. As seen in the footage, an elderly man accidentally pressed the button to close the doors as a second man was entering the elevator. The latter, who was only identified as Hu, became furious and grabbed the smaller, older man, cornering him in the elevator. A friend of Hu's held him back as he proceeded to berate the senior citizen, who apologized profusely, repeatedly bowed his head and tried to defuse the situation. The conflict died down, but when the man came out of the elevator, Hu and his friend got in his face again and continued to harass him in the lobby. Hu started pushing the victim and cocked his arm back as if he was gearing up to take a swing at him. A third man, clad in a black shirt, then stepped in and started talking to Hu, but he remained aggressive and shoved him as well. In the moments that followed, the elevator doors opened and 4 face mask-wearing men stormed out. It would emerge that the man in black had called his friends working upstairs. Seeing that his companions had arrived, the man in black then punched Hu in the face, knocking him back. Chaos unfolded as the vigilantes began pummeling Hu and his friend. The bully turned victim cowered under a barrage of strikes. As the others chased after his companion, Hu was left with a vigilante who relentlessly kneed and punched him in the head. After Hu collapsed, the other man forcefully stomped on his head and kicked him in the face. He then dragged him towards the elevator and held his limp body up as another vigilante struck him in the head with what appeared to be a motorcycle helmet. That blow was accompanied by a final face stomp that rendered Hu unconscious. The police arrived at the scene and took him, the elderly man, and the vigilantes in for questioning. Hu had sustained mild injuries and scratches as a result of the brutal beatdown. None of the parties involved in the altercation chose to pursue charges, but for his harassment of a senior citizen, Hu still risked being prosecuted for violating the Social Order Maintenance Act. Number 5. Bouncer knockout. In the spring of 2016, a violent incident occurred outside of the Coda nightclub on Walnut Street in Philadelphia. It was captured in a video that began with a young man sitting on the sidewalk while leaning against a street light. Sources from the scene reported that he'd been previously kicked out of the club. The man got up, approached the bouncer and started pestering him to be allowed back inside. He dared the much larger security staffer to strike him, saying, "Now if you hit me and you swing and you miss, can I still go inside?" The bouncer ignored him, but the reveler, who appeared to be intoxicated, persisted. While holding his arms crossed, he then attempted to walk past the door staff and enter the club. It was at that moment that the bouncer unleashed a thunderous strike that snapped the young man's head backwards. His body instantly stiffened up and he unflinchingly dropped to the pavement. The bouncer then walked away as others at the scene tended to the unconscious man. His injuries weren't clear, but no charges were filed in the immediate aftermath. Number 4. Wing walker. On August 31st of 2020, Ukraine International Airlines flight PS6212 out of Antalya, Turkey, touched down at its destination, the Boryspil Airport in Kiev, Ukraine. Shortly after the plane had come to a stop and as passengers had begun disembarking, 2 children pointed and shouted, "That's our mum." Passengers then saw that a blonde woman clad in a white top and pink capri pants had made her way onto the wing of the aircraft after opening an emergency exit. The woman had returned from a holiday with her husband and their children. Cell phone video of her antics went viral. After a brief wing walk, the unnamed woman got back into the plane and rejoined her family. Border agents, police, and an ambulance were called to the scene. Contrary to initial suspicions, it would emerge that the woman hadn't experienced a medical emergency and she tested negative for drugs and alcohol. She motivated her actions by saying that she was simply too hot inside the plane and that she wanted to cool off. Ukraine International Airlines blacklisted her for gross violation of aviation safety rules and demanded that she pay an exceptionally high financial penalty for her behavior. Number 3. Incident in Brazil. In the summer of 2024, a video of an attempted robbery at a store in Brazil went viral after an employee turned the tables on the perpetrator. An unidentified man wearing a motorcycle helmet entered a cell phone store, approached a woman sitting behind the counter and appeared to brandish a pistol. Within seconds, a male employee on the other side of the room pulled out his own handgun, cocked it, and took aim at the would-be robber. He fired multiple times, striking the suspect, who collapsed to the floor. He was rushed to the hospital and reported to be in a very serious condition. The employee who'd shot him was taken to a police station where he made a statement before he was released. Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro was known for having a looser policy on gun ownership, as he reportedly believed that an armed populace will never be enslaved. After taking office in 2023, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva signed a decree that restricted civilian access to guns and ammunition. According to the Instituto São do Paz, a non-profit that monitored national security, gun ownership tripled during Bolsonaro's administration. The numbers, however, didn't correlate to an increased number of gun-related slayings, as the figures were reportedly roughly the same in the first and last years of Bolsonaro's presidency. Today's topic was inspired by Cecily Carroll. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Justin Triplett. In the summer of 2014, American man Justin Triplett took part in a running of the Bulls event held at the Alameda County Fairgrounds in Pleasanton, California. The festival, based on the famous Bull Run in Pamplona, Spain, similarly saw participants fleeing down the street in front of the rampaging animals. At some point as he was running, Triplett took out his phone and began recording backwards over his shoulder. In doing so, he critically underestimated the distance between him and a 2,000-pound bull. The man later told a media outlet The next thing I remember is that the crowd that was behind me dispersed, and I looked back and realized the ball was probably 5 yards away from me. In the moments that followed, the animal sped up and rammed into Triplet, leaving him bundled on the ground and triggering gasps from the crowd. Triplet was immediately tended to by medical staff. He subsequently shared a smiling selfie on Facebook while he was hooked up to live monitoring sensors and wearing a neck brace. Triplet assured his friends and followers that he was all right, aside from bad cuts to his face and right side. If you also would like to see our release from a while back about when fitness buffs go wrong, then stick around after number 1 is coming right up. Number 1. YouTube prank gone wrong. The video of a failed YouTube prank, which had been uploaded in 2014 to a channel called Reckless Youth, was rediscovered by Barstool Sports in 2023, and it went viral. Australian youths Daniel Marin, Robert Milazzo, and George Proistos had decided to stage a fake mugging near an ATM machine in Sydney. Moran role-played as the unsuspecting victim, while Proistos played the robber, the latter, who wore a hoodie and a scarf, screamed, "Give me all your money," before he took Moran down. Several witnesses intervened to pull Proistos off before a man rushed in and punched him square in the face. At that point, the trio promptly announced that it was a prank. The strike broke Proistos' nose in 3 places, and his face was seen draped in blood before the video cut off. In the aftermath, Moran spoke to the media and revealed that the Good Samaritan had likely worn a ring on his punching hand, and that the hit left a gaping wound on Proistos' nose, which required 7 stitches to mend. Moran claimed that he and the others had tried to conduct a social experiment to see if anyone would step in to stop the mugging. He also reported that there was an overwhelming amount of negative comments that their stunt had received on social media. One user wrote, "This isn't a prank. Even if he didn't intend to do any harm, he deserved every bit of it," while another comment read, "My only complaint is he only got hit once." New South Wales police reviewed the footage and urged the public not to imitate such pranks. On September the 30th of 2022, the Hendry County Sheriff's Office in Florida received reports that 39-year-old nurse Katie Balnack was missing. The last time she'd been seen a day prior, Katie had dropped her children off at a friend's house and told them she'd be picking up some items from the home of her ex, 43-year-old professional bodybuilder Ian. About a month prior, the woman had filed for a restraining order against him. When deputies went to the fitness star's residence, they found Katie's car in the driveway with her purse inside. Law enforcement obtained a search warrant and returned to the property for several days, during which they found a number of illegal items owned by Ian, as well as damning evidence that the missing woman had been murdered by him. There were signs of a struggle between the garage doorway and foyer, as well as traces of blood in Ian's truck, which the man maintained had come from groceries. Katie's wedding band and engagement ring, both of which she was reportedly wearing upon dropping off the children, were found in a safe at the home. Upon further examination of the property, investigators came upon what was described as a fresh burn pile in the backyard, which contained part of a jawbone and a tooth. Nearby was a 50-gallon barrel which contained another bone fragment and reeked of decaying flesh. The police also recovered 13 vials of steroids, which Ian admitted belonged to him, along with more than a dozen unregistered silencers, an AR-15 upper receiver, and a Glock Model 27 40 caliber pistol. Ian waived his Miranda rights and told law enforcement that he and Katie had gotten into a row about another woman when she'd visited his home. He claimed that he went to sleep to avoid further arguments and that Katie was gone when he woke up. His version of events held up poorly against the evidence, and he was taken into custody on charges of first-degree premeditated murder, destruction or concealment of physical evidence, and cremating a dead body. Number 7. Mary Malloy. In April of 2020, Australian fitness model Mary Malloy was given a 3-year suspended sentence for the role she had played in a massive MDMA trafficking operation ran by her former boyfriend, Jason Adkins. His illegal activity was believed to have run from 2016 to 2018, and at the height of his power, bodybuilder Adkins was making transactions of up to $200,000. A police raid resulted in him losing his supply in November of 2017, as 24,000 MDMA pills with a street value of more than $1 million were seized from a property in Albion. Atkins became desperate as he was no longer able to cover his drug debts and feared retaliation from his criminal associates. He liquidated a number of assets, including a valuable engagement ring he'd given 25-year-old Malloy. The latter became directly involved in the trafficking operation, and she chased down debts for him. They eventually broke up and were arrested separately in April of 2018. About a year later, Malloy pleaded guilty to various charges, including supplying and trafficking dangerous drugs. Atkins also admitted trafficking drugs and was sentenced to 7 years in prison with a chance at parole after 2. Certain arguments from his defense were taken into consideration during sentencing. His attorney argued that Atkins was not a kingpin in the Brisbane drug trade, while also highlighting his difficult upbringing and mental health struggles, which included depression, anxiety, and PTSD. The court was told that the bodybuilder had tried to take his life on 2 occasions prior to his arrest and had actively sought help for his issues. Number 6. Sarah Rutherford. Fitness star and pet clothing entrepreneur Sarah Rutherford was arrested by law enforcement in Sydney, Australia in February of 2020 for running an illicit business through which she distributed up to 300 grams of cocaine to the city's professional elite. On the surface, Rutherford ran Furry Culture, an online clothing store that boasted selling only the best designer apparel for dogs. Following an investigation carried out by detectives from the city's drug and firearms squad, it emerged that the 29-year-old was behind a dealer-dealer cocaine ring. She'd organized delivery of the drugs by way of drivers whom she contacted on the phone, then met and supplied. The police raided her Greenacre home on February the 27th and seized mobile phones, cocaine, drug paraphernalia, and documents pertaining to the operation. The woman, originally from Bridgewater in Somerset, England, was taken into custody and charged, among other offenses, with supplying commercial quantities of drugs and directing a criminal group assisting crime. Number 5. Anthony Ragusa. Starting in 2013, bodybuilder Anthony Ragusa from Long Island, New York, began collecting disability benefits after he'd suffered a fall while working as an electrician. He claimed that his injuries had left him unable to walk for more than 15 minutes or stand for more than 30. Ragusa continued receiving benefits for the next 7 years, reaching a total sum of approximately $200,000. During that time, however, he owned and ran a business called White Star Limousine while regularly working out. Ragusa frequently went to Bev Francis Gym in Syosset, which was known as a mecca for bodybuilders. Suspicions regarding his illegal activity arose in 2017 due to the social media posts of his wife, Lolly. The woman, a professional athlete with the International Federation of Bodybuilders, uploaded photos and videos to her Instagram that showed her working out alongside Ragusa. The latter's heavily muscled physique starkly contradicted the supposed disabilities for which he'd been receiving taxpayer money. He was arrested and ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree grand larceny. New York Attorney General Letitia James referred to his actions as not only a shameful slap in the face to those who actually live with disabilities, but a vast waste of taxpayer dollars. Ragusa was ordered to complete 5 years of probation and to pay the Social Security Administration $200,000 in restitution, with failure to comply resulting in him spending up to 3 years behind bars. Number 4. Mark Boyce. Australian fitness star Mark Boyce lashed out during a video court appearance in October of 2020 after he was denied bail following his arrest for assault and obstruction. He was already on probation in August of that year, and 6 weeks later, Boyce was accused of attacking a woman and causing her bodily harm in Brisbane's Manly West. The following day, the bodybuilder allegedly obstructed an officer and hindered him from performing his duties. The 30-year-old appeared via video link from the Brisbane Watch House and reacted violently upon hearing that his bail request was denied. He began punching a Perspex door and repeatedly yelled out, "Let me out of this place!" before the link cut off. Queensland Police had opposed the request, arguing that releasing boys would have meant endangering the safety or welfare of members of the public. Number 3. Danny Reardon. Award-winning bodybuilder Danny Reardon was arrested in Edgewood, Florida in the fall of 2014 for attacking her boyfriend and damaging his car. According to a police report, 25-year-old Reardon got into a dispute with other guests at a house party. The intoxicated woman started pulling out plants and kicking vehicles before directing her rage towards her partner of 3 years, Ian Schofield. She tackled and punched him before kicking and shattering the windshield of his truck. Officers were called to the property and struggled to take the belligerent fitness star into custody. Reardon, who competed in the International Federation of Bodybuilding and Fitness, initially resisted arrest but ultimately complied. While she was transported to Orange County Jail, Reardon, who was nicknamed Lil Monster in competition circles, had another outburst that involved her slamming her head against the cage that separated the officers from the back seat. She was charged with resisting arrest and battery. Number 2. Nathan D'Asher and Richard Green. In August of 2017, Richard Green, the owner of a gin in Barnstable, England, was stopped in traffic by local law enforcement. They searched his vehicle and found hundreds of ecstasy pills, along with about $3,000 in cash. The find triggered an investigation into the affairs of 48-year-old Green, a former bodybuilder who called himself Mr. Iron Man on social media, and his wife Georgina, who was known as Mrs. Iron Man. In the boiler room of the gym that the former owned, the police discovered illegal steroids worth over $10,000 and tens of thousands of dollars in cash that had been placed in shopping bags. Green admitted possession of Class C steroids with intent to supply and was jailed for 4 years and 6 months at Exeter Crown Court. Georgina was handed a sentence of 12 months, suspended for 2 years, in order to do 240 hours unpaid community work. Further investigative reports revealed that the couple were working with Liverpool-based bodybuilding champion Nathan D'Asher. The latter had sent the steroids to Green's Pain and Gain gym from his own fitness facility in the suburb of Speck. The packages received by Green had D'Asher's home address on them, an aspect which prosecutors later described as stupidity, and they were also found to contain the bodybuilder's fingerprints. D'Asher had supplied the illegal substances over the course of several months after giving a bodybuilding demonstration to customers. A judge called the man a disgrace to his sport and gave him a suspended sentence of 12 months. D'Asher was a British Grand Prix champion when he was sentenced and had to withdraw from a Mr. Olympia event in Las Vegas in order to attend court. Number 1. Hossein Balapour. 33-year-old Australian fitness star Hossein Balapour, known as Yaki Boy across social media, was arrested by Sydney police in January of 2023 following a street brawl outside a unit complex in Rosebery. The incident took place on the 15th of the month, and it involved Balapour and 30-year-old personal trainer Marvin Yacoub. In the past, the two bodybuilders had posed for photos together and described themselves as brothers. They eventually began feuding over money and cars, with the dispute reaching its climax in the video-recorded fight. As they stood next to each other, surrounded by other men, Balapour headbutted Yacoub, knocking him to the ground, and then delivered a flurry of strikes while he was down. Yacoub got up and tried to run away, but his 6'5" aggressor chased him down through oncoming traffic and hit him again with what appeared to be a long, thin object. Their companions intervened and managed to separate them. Law enforcement became aware of the video after it had been widely shared on social media and launched an investigation. On January the 20th, heavily armored officers from the State Crime Command's Raptor Squad stormed into the gym at Balapour's unit block. What followed was recorded on their body cams. The officers dragged the fitness star off a treadmill and forced him on the floor, where they restrained him. He was then led into the back of a police van and taken to the station. Balapur was charged with affray, using an offensive weapon with intent to commit an indictable offense and breach of bail. The latter violation was connected to a separate assault charge for which he'd been bailed out at the time of the attack on Yaqub, and to which he'd pleaded not guilty. Thanks for watching. Would you rather try to survive a round with a professional female UFC fighter, or have your private photos go viral? Let us know in the comments section below.